Alrighty everyone, welcome back. It is now May 20th of 2024, and given that all divisions over at the Walt Disney Company are going through numerous challenges right now, not just limited to Bob Iger's lack of leadership skills, but also his deliberate agenda for everything Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney in general, it's not looking good at all in the slightest here for 2025, let alone for 2026. Now, for this year, actually, the only film that they're really banking on is Deadpool and Wolverine, at least when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and there's been a lot of drama happening behind closed doors between the creative team behind Deadpool and Wolverine and, of course, the Disney heads. Now, what's really interesting about all of this has a lot to do with Ryan Reynolds and his ongoing battle against Disney, Bob Iger, of course, and the ongoing DEI agenda spilling into all of these projects moving forward. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So one thing about Ryan Reynolds that I think that we could all agree on about here is the fact that we need more actors like this that are willing to take a stand against the bigwigs, especially over at Disney, for example. He's very similar to that of Henry Cavill, who took a stand against Netflix and called them out, as well as other studios before in the past. But focusing on what's been going on here between Shawn Levy, the director of the new Deadpool film, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and how this all also involves Bob Iger and Kevin Feige getting mixed up in the drama. Well, a lot of it has to do with a new project that's really been in shambles as we speak. Let's go through with this. Now, specifically, of course, with all divisions at the Walt Disney Company going through an endless vicious cycle from Bob Iger's cost-cutting measures and his deliberate agenda, one major development now involves more to do with Bob Iger and the board doubling down on the third phase of the cost containment plan that is already set to impact everything Marvel-related, for example. However, recently Ryan Reynolds fell into creative arguments behind the scenes that were so powerful that it rattled throughout all of Marvel Studios for a film that Reynolds and Shawn Levy were developing for Hugh Jackman's return as Wolverine in his very own film that Disney had initially agreed to, that Disney analysts informed the Disney heads, of course, that it would certainly garner hundreds of millions of dollars around the globe. Now, this project is reportedly called The Wars of Wolverine, that's the code name, and surprisingly, Ryan initially had gotten Disney to get rid of their DEI agenda, for the most part, quote-unquote, in this film, that would actually have made the film successful as yet another R-rated Marvel movie. However, the turn of events here is that after Ryan and crew tried to do something similar with Wolverine's war scenes in Deadpool and Wolverine to kind of test the waters of how that movie would go, and how Bob Iger saw those as too violent, Disney decided that they wanted to make the Wars of Wolverine project into a PG-13 film. Now, this is something that Reynolds convinced Hugh Jackman to step down from immediately, as Reynolds, of course, Shawn Levy, and even Hugh Jackman grouped together against the Disney heads and decided that this project should be shelved, and so it was. And though Disney analysts projected it would have easily made hundreds of millions, it would have also been the first dedicated Wolverine film since Logan. Reynolds was also set to write the script of the film, at least partially as a co-writer, and was also mapped out to work with director Shawn Levy in his return to bring this version of Wolverine to life, fighting throughout the Civil War, World War I, II, and Vietnam. The arguments came between Reynolds and the Disney heads after Bob Iger and Kevin Feige wanted to drop the R rating and wanted to shift away from the excessive violence. Jackman was reportedly furious over this change and decision made by Iger and the rest at Disney, to the point where he didn't even want to take part in a Wolverine solo film under Disney's wing, and even Marvel Studios at that. That would be a disservice to fans. Now, Disney analysts, however, projected that the film would have still garnered that much money across the board, even with the PG-13 rating. However, after coming out of Deadpool and Wolverine, this certainly would have changed everything. Disney have reportedly already wasted numerous funds on this project that now went to a complete waste behind the scenes, and unless Disney decides to agree with Reynolds and Shawn Levy on the R rating, this project already resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in lost revenue that would have rightfully, of course, course, addressed the Wolverine that fans have always wanted to see from the comics as well, beyond the current film for 2024. Disney already reportedly, of course, spent millions of dollars on this project toward developing set pieces and hiring various employees for the project that has now been shelved due to creative differences between Reynolds and crew against the Disney heads. Now guys, let me just say one thing about this. Now, this is typical Disney, you know, playing things safe, acting way too afraid or being too politically correct about what you really should do with a character that's built on violence. That's exactly why Deadpool and Wolverine, I feel, is going to be a great service to the character of Wolverine because, well, Shawn Levy and Ryan Reynolds, they just get it. They understand the character, and we already talked about how there were going to be war scenes in this movie, but they got cut by Disney. That was actually, as it turns out, Ryan Reynolds and crew, their way of testing the waters of how that movie, The Wars of Wolverine, the code name, would have actually done on the big screen to kind of see how fans would react to those sequences. Now, Reynolds, basically his dream was to kind of create his own version of X-Men Origins Wolverine / The Wolverine, you know, something that would feature a younger iteration of Wolverine in a solo film, as opposed to what was done in Logan, where it's more like, you know, to the point where it's not about the end of his life or anything like that. They wanted to do something that would be about himself in his prime. Now, obviously, you would have had to do some de-aging technology, kind of like what they did in past films in the MCU, or even in Indiana Jones 5. However, on top of that, already Shawn Levy is fighting to resurrect this project with an R rating. However, Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are still not budging to make that change. Now again, Kevin Feige and Bob Iger are a part of the problem. I mean, they're very stubborn when it comes to developing something that would easily make hundreds of millions, if not at least $1 billion worldwide if it's done right. But at the same exact time, we all have to point the finger at BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street for really funding a lot of nonsense over at Disney. Now sure, Ryan was able to get Disney to drop most of their DEI nonsense and garbage from this untitled project, codenamed The Wars of Wolverine, but there was still going to be a level of DEI thrown in there, a certain level of messaging and agenda-driven stuff getting shoehorned into that actual project, so it wasn't completely vanquished. So BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are still a problem. They're always finding their sneaky ways to really kind of incorporating all of this stuff into movies, into all forms of entertainment. I mean, the list goes on. But interestingly enough, like I say, guys, I mean, this is an ongoing battle between Shawn Levy, Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman, and the Disney heads. And reshoots are about to wrap. We'll be talking more about this as well for Deadpool and Wolverine. They got like maybe a little over 1 week, maybe 2 weeks to go until reshoots are completely finished. They're going to rush through that for June and portions of July, and that's when the movie will release by the end of that month. So I would love to hear what everyone has to say about this ongoing situation between Disney and creatives behind the Deadpool and Wolverine characters, especially Wolverine, for example. You know, that's also another big problem at stake here. But anyway, I would love to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.